Welcome children. Take out your history book. Chapter 6. Decline of the Mughals and Rise of Independent Kingdom. The 18th century was a significant period in the Indian history as the map and landscape of India underwent major changes. Now 18th century, what was it? It was very important period in the Indian history because the map and landscape of India, it has seen major changes. The most powerful empire of medieval India, the Mughal Empire, established in the mid 16th century, was the beginning of the show signs of decay. Now, most powerful empire of medieval India, that was the Mughal Empire. It was established in the mid 16th century and was the beginning to show signs of decay. Now, who were called the later Mughals? Later Mughals were, these kings were called the later Mughals, that is Bahadur Shah I, Jahandar Shah, Farooq Shah, Muhammad Shah, Ahmad Shah, Alamgir II, Shah Alam II, Akbar II, Bahadur Shah Zafar. These kings were called the later Mughals. Factors that led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. Many factors were responsible for the decline and collapse of the Mughal Empire. Now, many factors were there. They were responsible that this empire, this Mughal Empire, completely declined and it got collapsed. The foremost reason were ineffective governance and the absence of strong central authority. First reason that the governance was ineffective and there was absence of strong central authority. Court intrigues and power struggles during the reign of Aurangzeb's successor also affected the stability of the Mughal Empire. Now, court intrigues and even the power of struggle that during this reign of Aurangzeb's successor, it had also affected the stability of the Mughal Empire. War of Succession. A war of succession broke out between Aurangzeb's three sons after the death among them. Now, a war of succession, it also broke out between Aurangzeb's three sons, that is after the death, that is between among them. Bahadur Shah I, also known as Shah Alam I, ascended. Now, Bahadur Shah I, what was he known as? He was also known as Shah Alam I. He came to the throne in 1707. Soon after his death, another war of succession started between his four sons. Now, soon after the death, what happened? Another war of succession started between his four sons. Here, Jahandar Shah emerged victorious chiefly with the help of Zulfikar Khan. Now, what happened? Jahandar Shah, he emerged victorious with the help of Zulfikar Khan. Who was he? He was a very powerful noble. Every time a chief died, a war of succession broke out, causing great political turmoil. Now, whenever the ruler used to die, what happened? After that, there was war of succession and which causes the great political turmoil. This was because the law of primogeniture was not followed by the Mughal. Now, why it happened? Because the law of primogeniture, it was not at all, the Mughals never followed it. Except successor. Aurangzeb ruled over a vast empire with iron grip. Now, Aurangzeb, what he used to do? He used to rule over a very vast empire and they had a very strong grip. The rulers after Aurangzeb were known as later Mughal. Now, rulers after Aurangzeb, that means the rulers who came after Aurangzeb, they were called the later Mughals. I have already told you which kings were called the later Mughals. Did not have the administrative skill or nor the acumen or that Aurangzeb and his predecessor did. Now, these later Mughals, they did not have any administrative skill, nor did have the acumen that Aurangzeb and his predecessor did. Most of them turned to be pleasure-seeking, weak and ineffective. And most of the rulers who came after Aurangzeb, what happened? They were quite pleasure-seeking ruler. They were weak and ineffective ruler. So the affair of governance fell in the hands of the nobles and governors, and so the administration fell under the hands of the nobles and the governor. Many of the governors set up independent kingdoms which emerged as the center of power. Now, many of these governments, what they did, they set up independent kingdoms and this emerged as the centers of power. Now, failure of Jagirdari and Mansabdari system. Why this Jagirdari system and the Mansabdari system failed? The Mughal officers were given Jagirs, that is the Jagir means lands, as payment for their military services during the rule of Akbar. Now, during the rule of Akbar, the Mughal officers were given the land for their military services. It was also well organized system. Now, this system. It was very old, well organized system. The officers were given jagirs known as jagita. Now officers, they were given land, and this land were called the jagita. By the end of the 17th century, the number of nobles increased in the Mughal. Now by the end of 17th century, what happened? Many nobles increased in the Mughal court, since they were very jagirs, few jagirs, and after that what happened? Only few jagirs were left. The crown lands were converted to jagirs and given to nobles. Now the crown lands, that means the king's land, they were converted to jagirs and they were given to the nobles. This resulted in a loss of revenue in the royal treasure, as the revenue from the jagirs were appropriated by the jagidar. Now this resulted, what it resulted? It resulted the revenue of the royal treasure, because the revenue from the jagidar, it was appropriated by the jagidar. The Mansabdari system was brought into practice during the Akbar design to keep absolute control over the Mughal army. Now Mansabdari system, it was brought into practice where? During the Akbar rules, and it was kept to practice and kept absolute control by the Mughal emperor, kept absolute control over it. The Mansabdars were officers who maintained fixed number of troops for the emperor. Now who were the Mansabdar? They were the officers. They used to maintain number of troops for the emperor. This helped the emperor maintain his army efficiently, and this what used to help? This used to help the emperor to maintain his army in a very efficient way. The system became weak towards the end of the 17th century when Mansabdar failed to fulfill their functions for maintaining troops. Now this system, what happened? It became weak after the end of the 17th century, and so the Mansabdar, what happened? They failed to function the function of maintaining the troops. Thus Mansabdar system became ineffective method of controlling the Mughal, and so the Mansabdar system, what happened? It became very ineffective method to control the Mughal army. Thus it led to a decline in the military strength of the world. And so what happened? It led to a military strength and of the Mughals. Now take out your history book, take out your diary, write chapter 6, decline of the Mughals and rise of independent kingdom. 2 pages, explain, homework, revise it. And with this, I am ending my today's class. Goodbye.